Hello and welcome to Eastenders Weekly, your weekly podcast all about EastEnders. This week we'll be talking about episodes from the 26th to the 30th of March. And happy Easter to everyone watching live, because it is Easter Sunday, isn't it?
Yes, happy Easter everyone. Happy Easter, Ben. I see even though it's not technically Easter as we record this, you've already cracked open your chocolate egg. So
I had an egg before starting. So
you laid an egg and ate it.
I got lots of energy now.
Full of sugar.
Yes. So this week, a little bit emotional, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a different week, wasn't it? It was a bit of a foot off the accelerator and slowly stepping down on the brake in the slow...
Well, I mean, it can't be at 100% all the time because...
No, if it was like that all the time, like last week.
Cope.
No, I don't. You need more than just one chocolate egg to survive.
I need all of them.
So there's been a few stories this week, not one main story, just a few bubbling around. So let's start how we did last week and have a bit of a roundup.
These, deer skin with a cashmere lining, all the better for sensitivity and grip.
Oh, you're supposed to be dead.
I didn't know I was dead.
I lay that good money on those Scotch eggs.
Well, my nan can be very convincing at times.
You've hidden 300 quid in your bra.
And some in me socks and some down me stride.
I'll get it out.
Oh, yes! Oh.
I'm in. Good.
Right, I'll put the kettle on. It's a symbol when Jesus got crucified.
You flirting with me?
Yeah.
Go from woman to woman like a feral cat. Someone ought to give you the snip.
Oh, no.
Nice juicy steak and chips. Now I really better get some action tonight.
Never mentioned chips.
I might not be educated, but I'm very experienced.
Checkmate.
Sod off. That's simple enough for you.
Joyce? Good night, love.
Really fancy some chips now.
Me too. And a nice ribeye steak. Delicious.
Oh my goodness. That just brought back so many memories of the past week, that little clip. So, where to start? I was thinking about starting with the Slaters this week, because that's where we left off last week. So we've got money troubles with Big Mo going on still.
Yeah, so more of the same, I suppose you could say, because it's the same base storyline as it was last week, where Big Mo is still trying to find ways of gaining that £5,000 to pay back to the Birmingham mob.
Another mob on its way. She's from Horrible Histories as well, I found out, the actress who plays Annie.
Another CBBC show. Yeah, they get around, don't they?
They're all there. So we sort of opened up with Walford becoming a baying mob against the Slaters, with showing their disapproval to faking death.
Well, yes, none of them were too far impressed right at the beginning of the week. Mick went and visited the Slaters with his biscuit tin full of cash, and he said after the brawl, it wasn't very... He didn't seem that upset by the brawl. He seemed quite as if that was just an everyday occurrence.
Well, it has been recently, I suppose, compared to Aiden's 6 to 10.
That's true. That's true.
They could handle it.
It's tame compared to his little Aiden's gang. But so he picked up all the he after the fight and the cleanup, he picked up all the money, and they were 300 notes short. And
where did it go?
Where did that 300 notes go?
That Waynetta, she must have took some, shoved it down her bra.
Well, that's what Kat said. Kat said, I blame anyone. I blame Waynetta. Poor old But
we did find out eventually that it was down in all sorts of places on Big Mo, wasn't it?
Well, Big Mo had concealed it, I'm presuming overnight. And I don't know how she must have, like, in the morning kind of had her shower and then just kind of concealed it in all these different places, her bra and her knickers and undercrackers, her slippers, up her sleeve. Because that's how Kat discovered it, wasn't it? Kat, whilst talking to Big Mo after...
She noticed her sort of grabbing her wrist, didn't she?
She was grabbing her wrist.
Tenner.
Yeah, kind of pushing something up into her wrist, and she kind of grabbed...
I mean, she had £300, lots of notes all over the place on her body somewhere. So,
well, if they were all £10 notes, there was 30 notes going on around her there. It was like some kind of Noel's house party game. But so obviously the Square weren't very impressed. The press,
yes,
press,
the two members of press turned
the
up.
Walford Gazette.
Yeah,
they were almost.
So
we need 2 stock characters for the press, please. Bring them this way, and in they came with their slick back hair and their slightly unarranged shirts and trousers and the photographer every time they came out. I liked them when Kat and Big Mo and Stacey left the house in order to give the money back to Mick. And when Big Mo ran away and got caught. I like the way that they filmed it as if it was like something that was being filmed for some kind of news channel. So when Kat came out, she kind of put her hand in front of the camera as if this 24-hour streaming news was following the Slater story, like in The Simpsons when they've got like the thermal cam and like Kat is basting herself in the oven, you know. So.
What did you make of some of the members of Walford judging them so critically? Because Martin, Mick, and Ian were both outside. And Ian seems very upset that Mo faked her death.
I think
he said, you can be done for fraud, you can be put in prison, this, that and that. If we wind our thoughts back to 2 years ago, when his mum turned up from the dead.
Yes.
He wasn't sending her off to prison, was he?
Well, he wasn't. But then they didn't con the whole square out of money in order to pay Kathy's debt to society or to
slightly
someone.
Hypocritical.
It is hypocritical, but then that's Ian Bill down to a T, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago when he did the exact same thing as his son did, lying about the cancer diagnosis. He did the same thing with Mel way back in 2000. So Ian Bill is
bad memory, isn't he?
It's not bad memory. I just think he watches everything from his tower and believes that he's the right and the main being of the square. So he's almost like Pauline, isn't he? He's like the male Pauline.
So we also had a few more things sort of dropped in for future storylines for the Slaters, because we had Stacey mention to Kat that Big Mo's been telling her about what happened in Ireland. So they're obviously keeping with that story going forward. They keep sort of dropping little hints about that.
But whenever they were arguing throughout the first couple of episodes, Big Mo would always almost say, you know...
Yeah, like drop a little bombshell about Ireland, wouldn't she?
Yeah, Big Mo would always mention something to Kat, popcorning kettle, you know, how dare you criticise me when your life isn't much better where you've just come from Ireland and you and Alfie isn't, you know, the bed of roses that you're kind of... Not, I suppose she's not really disguising that she has had this idyllic life in Ireland, or she's run away from it.
But she just keeps putting off the subject every time someone mentions it. So she's like, let's sort this problem out first.
We've got to sort out Mo first.
Almost like she's saying, my storyline will come in a few weeks.
yeah. Just have patience. My storyline will come, as will Alfie.
Oh yes.
But I think as you were saying about the square being a bit judgmental of them, Martin has been almost their cheerleader. To be fair, he's kind of supported them throughout it. Like, kind of, okay, hang on, guys. You know, they made this mistake. It was a desperate time.
Well, that's because he's still euphoric over his grief sex.
And he is. He still thinks he has this chance with Stacey, and he's been shot down 3 times this week. Stacey's, to paraphrase his sentence, a white cow. She's like really kind of just used him and now just throw him away like a tissue. You know, just kind of didn't really. But then I suppose that's how she gains her power, isn't it? By her use of manipulating men. She's good at it. It goes back to her base when she was first introduced into the soap when she was younger, and she used her power. Yeah,
because Martin's been spilling the beans about Mo being alive to Annie as well, didn't he? So
he thought they were pressed too, and he got a bit upset, didn't he? Because she came over and said, "What's this all going on about over there?" And he was, "Oh, not another one of you press. Oh, why can't you just leave them alone?" And basically, spilled the beans that Big Mo was. Well, she said, "Oh, the Big Mo Slater's died as well," and he was like, "No, Mo Slater was never dead.
You can't get any facts right."
Yeah. How dare you? Can't get facts right.
Press always get facts right.
Maybe that was a dig of the show to the press because they've been giving them a hard time recently. But when Mo ran away, as we were saying earlier, when the press were attacking them, she was caught up by
Annie. Yes, you look quite good for a dead bird.
That's right.
Yeah, and we saw Mo again, and she had like a little scratch on her face, and she had a bit of blood.
Well, she'd been obviously beaten by Annie with her wedding ring on, with her
sharp diamonds.
Sharp diamonds, yeah.
Which makes another occurrence towards the end of the week.
I think that it had to continue, but the storyline kind of came to a bit of a slowdown and kind of just pondered along, whereas they were coming up with money-making schemes, or Mo was coming up with money-making schemes
Some more comedic storyline.
Yeah, in order to pay the money back. I don't think this storyline has ever been anything but comedic, to be honest with you. Even when it got a little bit nasty near the end, it never got so nasty that you kind of thought, oh, this me, they're in trouble.
I guess that's why they sort of cast that actress to play Annie. I don't think she's meant to be this fearsome sort of gangster character. It's meant to be seen as a bit light-hearted and a bit fun, because you know, a lot of the lines to her are they're quite funny and
because you know, gangsters are funny. There's something to be laughed about.
Yeah, but like a contrast to how they cast Aidan compared to how they cast her.
Well, Aidan was much
darker. It was obviously meant to be a more light-hearted introduction back to the Slaters.
I mean, it was a short snippet as well. Like Aidan, that you've learnt a lot of his background over a long period of time. It was a slow burner. This was bound as a very short storyline, a very quick storyline. So you didn't really know a lot other than the fact that Mo had conned her dad, and that they were quite tricky people to deal with. But so there's only so much depth you could really give this storyline without it being too over dramatic. And so I think
all ground.
Yeah, and last week we said that it was nice that it was played straight, and they made a lot of the story made it funnier. Again, it was played quite straight, a lot of the storyline, and so the comedic moments were very good. I mean,
what was Mo up to?
Well, when Mo came out of the kitchen with a headscarf on and was it like a red lamp?
Like Mystic Meg.
In a goldfish bowl.
I mean, Jean was not impressed, was she?
Well, they all were under the impression that Big Mo was doing some kind of sex show online.
You mean she wasn't?
Well, no, she wasn't.
I was almost convinced when I heard her on the other side of that door.
Her groaning and moaning.
Yeah.
Well, poor old Jean, she was having a heart attack on the other side of the door. She was looking in. She had her, cupping her eyes around the door window. It's a shame it was a frosted glass, really. Otherwise, she could have worked it out straight away.
Alas, it wasn't that. It was obviously pretending to be able to speak to the dead.
Well, she was a medium.
Online,
she was being a medium online, and she was getting £30. Did she say £30 for a reading?
Well, I think Kat said when she thought it was sex talk, she said you're only going to be getting £30. So I'm assuming fortune telling is upper market.
Well, yes, it's a better way to go. You don't have to show your shoulder either, or
until
your top of your knee.
The Wi-Fi gets turned off. From Jean.
The Wi-Fi, yes. Well, she unplugged the whole house. She turned the
unplugged the house.
Well, she switched off the circuit board.
She did, yeah,
and knocked everything into darkness. But I can't see what I mean. Mo, I don't know what her impression is of mediumism, if that's the term to use for someone who talks to the dead, but clairvoyancy. But it seemed to be a very old-fashioned, almost 1900s, like 18th century kind of.
Well, if you're paying premium, you want the set, the outfit, the death.
Well, she had the outfit. She had the red light.
You've got to stand out when you're online. There's such a competitive market. She's in character.
I tell you what, actually, she put Jean looking through the door, through the frosted glass, probably did her good, because the way the laptop was set up, you could probably see this mysterious woman.
Yeah, the person watching was like, that's my mum, she's behind you.
She ask her name. She was going, oh, ah. So we learned that she was making money from it. To be fair, if they she gave up too quickly, if you ask me. They
could all do shifts.
Yes, they could have the Slater family clairvoyance agency.
And obviously, this really did upset Jean, because all of a sudden the back door was left open and she was gone, wasn't she?
Well, she went off to make a cup of tea. Yeah, because she thought that was the only thing that she could do, and she was gone for the rest of the week, because I think that happened even Monday or beginning on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And she was gone for
and
the rest
no one
of the
seemed to care. like Big Mo said to Stacey, "Oh, where's your mum?" She's like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
Why do I care?
Well, no,
make a cup of tea.
She said. Well, first of all, Big Mo was like, "Where's my cup of tea? I'm parched." And Stacey was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot she was making tea." I was like, "Okay, that's your mother."
Jean.
And then she went off, and Stacey suggested to Mo that she used her new talent to maybe communicate with Jean, which had a few people online worried that perhaps Jean had been kidnapped and killed.
Not killed.
Well, a couple of people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, thought that she'd been murdered for £5,000. tortured and murdered. Like her
Not
teeth.
having it.
They can have her teeth like an Aiden in a little Easter egg box.
Because obviously money making schemes, they were then desperate. So Stacey kindly offered not to sell just one of her wedding rings, her multiple wedding rings.
Her multiple weddings, yes. Which good on her. But she did make a lot of money from them, which I think was the main factor that upset Martin more than anything. That all she made from his wedding ring plus her other wedding rings was £300 because that's all they owed the Vic. Because they originally pawned that money for
Annie, but it wasn't. Yeah, and they went to say sorry, didn't they?
They went to say sorry, and they did a big thing because Stacey was walking through the square
yes.
and had an egg thrown
Filmed
at her.
like Crime Watch again, with all the cast. Like they always do this when a group of people are mad. Suddenly you find characters which shouldn't be there because Linda was just on the market with Carmel, and it's like when you see characters like that out of where they should be, you know. The whole square are judging them.
That's right.
And someone threw an egg onto the back of Stacey's head.
I know.
Any ideas who maybe threw that egg?
There was
Can
never.
We theorise?
Well, okay. Well, I reckon Carmel looked pretty shifty. I reckon Winston, he had a good angle.
It's got to be one of the
he
market
was.
stall holders. Does
Maybe
any of them sell eggs?
I don't know. Could have been Kathy from the caff window. Like,
or Honey from Minute Mart.
Oh, yeah, from the Minute
Maybe
Mart. Unless they sold out of eggs, which they potentially could have. Or I tell you who I think it could have been, because when they went to the pub to communicate, to apologise, I don't know the lady's name, the extra's name, or character name, but the one who looks a bit like Cyndi Lauper.
Yes,
I think she does the flower store.
Yes, she does. Obviously, yeah.
She's up to no good.
It must be now.
Yeah,
I don't think she has a name actually. Have to look that.
Let's call her
up.
Cyndi Lauper.
Cindy.
Cindy
Junior. So maybe she threw the egg at Stacey's head, which I thought was a bit extreme. Really,
it seemed a bit cruel.
I mean, Stacey hasn't actually done anything wrong.
But yeah,
she didn't know this was happening.
Well, I think the egg was a symbol for the whole Slater family to watch their back, wasn't it? Really, to say
maybe Annie threw it.
One
of the
could have been. Yeah, Annie. It was a warning.
Or the press because they wanted to get a photo.
Oh, yes. I'm surprised.
Who knows?
I'm surprised they didn't do kind of something they tend to do when the press are interested, inverted commas, and that's they had a picture of like Kat and Stacey leaving their house in like a kind of conspicuous way on the front of the Walford Gazette the next day, and you saw it like slam onto their doorstep, and they're like, oh no, it's happened, we're press worthy, we're going to be picked up by nationals in no time.
Well, they'll have to find a clearer photo to use in the newspaper than Big Mo did for Kat's obituary.
Yes, they couldn't use that one again. So after their barrage of hate from the square, which they then later
they all apologised.
All was forgiven. An olive branch was extended, and they all thought, okay, it's another Big Mo incident. Let's just let it pass.
And I liked Shirley's little nod to Big Mo that she still likes her. Behind the Vic.
She kept giggling, didn't she? Her and Tina kept giggling.
I forgot her and Big Mo used to be like drinking buddies and stuff. So
yes. God, years ago, wasn't it? Back in like 2012, 2013, they were best BFFs, weren't they?
So that was nice. At least Mo's got a few.
I have to say, I think that, just as a quick off note, the way the Slaters have been reintroduced into the soap with this big bang, and the way Big Mo has been reintroduced especially, I really have enjoyed it. And I like that Big Mo has been seen as what she should always be seen as, and that's a bit of a mischievous slacker. But she always tries to do the good in the end. And so she
never learns her lesson quite.
She never quite learns her lesson, but she learns enough to warrant her to probably the day she dies, she'll appease all of the things.
The trouble is,
done.
she hasn't got Charlie Slater to sort of bring her back down to earth anymore, is she? So,
which is a shame, because Charlie was always the moral ground of the Slaters, the moral-minded one. On Friday, Jean returned.
She did. Knock on the door. They're all hiding, weren't they?
Well, they're all playing cards, and they all
hiding really well.
Hiding in front of the front door. Yeah, hiding in the front door from Annie, and they were playing cards, and they were all saying, "God, we miss this. You know, it's nice. You know, we used to do, as a family, we do things like this all the time, and this is something we should do,
treasure,
and we should treasure, and we should be, stay as this solid unit, because together we're stronger than our individual selves." And they get a big loud bang on the door, and it's quite a violent bang on the door. Like
both hands.
But again, they should have known who it was, because the trademark cupping of the eyes, looking through the frosted glass happened again, and we knew that it wasn't a clairvoyant situation.
We knew the second we saw it, we knew it was Jean's outline.
We knew it wasn't the ghost of the Queen Vic. So Jean was like, "Cooey!" and they were like, "Oh, Jean, here she is." And so they opened the door again. Didn't seem to upstairs too fast that she'd been
She's
missing.
a grown woman, I guess.
Yes, but Jean is also a little bit temperamental and unhinged.
So where had she been?
Well, she'd gone to a few establishments to get her life savings. From the sound of things, she's got life savings in lots of different places. So I'm presuming she just has an ISA here.
Not a very good ISA though, apparently, because it's only £5,000.
Well, it's only £5,000, but conveniently, £5,000 is the exact amount that they need in order to do it. But Stacey is not so happy for her to give up her life savings, because she's insistent that Jean's going to need that money in the future. Not so much for Jean's benefit, but for more Stacey's, because she doesn't particularly fancy the idea of looking after her mother when she's older.
I did think that. I thought, Stacey, £5,000 not going to cut it for.
I mean, what's that? A couple of months at a care home?
It's a couple of weeks, I think, isn't it? I think it's about $1,500 a week.
But then at least you'll have a nice couple of weeks. It'd be like a holiday for Jean.
I suppose.
I suppose if you're going to spend £5,000, you might as well spend it going abroad for 2 weeks. If you're going to, they'll care for you as well. So
on a cruise.
On a cruise, lovely. And Stacey was quite cruel to Jean and said, like, no, keep the money, because I basically don't want to be looking after you in your old age. And so Jean.
She was off.
She was off.
Fine. Bye.
Had enough. But as she opened the door,
dun, dun, dun.
Who comes strutting toward the door? Like
Annie.
A charge. Yes, Annie. And
her men came out through the back kitchen door, knocked that through.
Jean closed the front door and thought they were safe. And then, two men. Again, very similar to... this seems to be a thing in EastEnders, where whenever there's a boss, a gangster boss, and her or his cronies, they seem to find all the different entrances around the house or the building in order to get in. And... yeah, so they all came in through the back door, smashed the back door in, and Stacey upset Annie and got the wrath.
Mouthy Stacey.
Mouthy Stacey got the wrath of the diamond on her finger, and she quite a hard hit, actually, to be fair. That looked like it stung.
I'm surprised Stacey didn't hit her back. Old Stacey would have.
Old Stacey would have. But she'll
be there in time.
She'll be back to the old ways.
And Jean basically said, "Oh, that's it. I'll give you the money and get out of our lives."
Yeah, Jean just had enough. Jean's not one for violence, is she? She's a bit John Lennon, Yoko Ono for that.
Get the story in, get it finished, get it out.
Well,
brilliant.
Jean doesn't particularly like violence in any form, so she wanted to finish it properly.
It's sort of their storyline this week sort of ended with a funny scene of them explaining why they're now in the show. Like Big Mo was like, "Well, Big Mo has to stay until you pay off the £5,000, and Jean has to stay until the £5,000 is paid off, and Kat's got to stay because she's got to keep Stacey sane." And it's like, and that's why we're here for 1 year contract.
And that's and now we're together, and this is how it's going to work. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Martin and Stacey now. There's all of them, because they kind of hinted, they've kind of forgotten the beginning of all this, where her cousin came in and was
they did
spying.
mention Hayley once, and Kat was the one that sent Hayley to help out.
Do you think they've forgotten about her? Do you think that's going to be something that's kind of just been forgotten?
She's going to come in it because the actress has been tweeting that she's been filming recently, and she's saying that the storyline is really emotional and the character's really sort of multi-leveled and things. So
that'd be
I
interesting.
think she's going to be a proper addition eventually.
Excellent.
I think she's going to be the type of person that you hate to begin with, but then end up loving. So
I liked
I mean,
her.
Speaking of characters like that, Karen Taylor was like that, wasn't she?
I liked Karen from the beginning. She was introduced to. She was full-bodied and well planned and thought out, and you could tell that she had this history and this soft side and this hard side, and there was a reason why she had to be this kind of really hard person from the get-go.
I mean, that's what goes to show on EastEnders, is that you don't always need to bring back like old families or old characters, because if you bring in a new family and actually give them that history and that multi-layer to them, like the Taylors have, they've fitted in so well with so many story opportunities.
No, I absolutely agree. I think there's obviously been a goal and a plan with the Taylors, be it short-term or long-term, dependent on the characters. I don't know, probably the only one maybe they didn't have a plan with was Bernie. I don't think they plan to do as much with Bernie as they have now done with Bernie. It's just to kind of help along Ted and Joyce. But I
suppose because when they introduced, she had that Miss Carrie storyline,
which was an excellent storyline.
And maybe they sort of saw how much potential Claire Norris has as an actress.
Humongous potential. She's an excellent actress, really, really well. But then again, they've lucked out with all the actors in that family. They're all really, really strong and good.
Because we had Keegan having quite a storyline this week with trying to meet up with his dad and sort of because he's been expelled from school apparently.
Where
he happened off screen.
It happened basically obviously the week before, so you didn't see it, and so he had to go into school to get his punishment. And
he did something to a toilet.
He blew up a toilet. There's no bare bones about it. I don't know what he must have done.
Bizarre.
He must have
It's like something from The Simpsons or from like
it
the
is,
90s
isn't it?
Or something.
Yeah, he got some sherbet dib dabs and lemonade, shook it and put it down the toilet and flushed.
And so he's been sort of texting his dad and trying to meet up with him in secret, hasn't he? Mitch.
Yes, and only Keegan has really known about it. None of the rest of the family have known about it, and he does.
They've not seen him since he ran off with that £3,000 of Patrick's.
Yeah, last week. I mean, we discussed it at the time. We knew that Mitch was going to be coming back. I was really surprised to see him come back so quickly. I thought it'd be a little bit longer before they did, but it was nice to see him. And again, he added more to the story, to the character, to Karen, to Keegan. Keanu didn't have so much to participate this time around, other than to kind of watch from the sidelines. He knew better than to join in so much this time. Although, yes, Keegan did have his own little storyline, which we'll discuss
we'll talk about that in a minute.
A bit later. But so Keegan met with Mitch at the secret cafe.
Yeah, the other cafe.
The other cafe.
You know, something secret is happening.
So something shouldn't be happening is happening. And he doesn't really talk about... He does talk about why Mitch has run away, but it's not so much that. He's just pleased to see his dad again. He wants to spend time with his dad.
He just craves approval, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We're finding that out more and more and more. And I noticed that Mitch has a few digs at Keegan during that scene where he sort of insults his intelligence and things, which I think obviously growing up, I think he's not been given much confidence, and Mitch is picking up on that, and you see that in quite a few of the scenes.
I think you've learnt from the time Karen and Keegan have been together that there's always been something about Keegan that Karen doesn't. She loves him, obviously, it's her son, but there's always been something about Keegan.
Like the black sheep of the family, sort of.
Yes, and if you've now learned that that's kind of been associated because of Mitch.
His dad,
Yeah. So because Keegan's now found someone who he can click and relate to, and he's not had that in that family. Although he's welcome in the family, he's never had that kind of connection with anyone, and he's found that now with Mitch. So, and he bonded really quickly. Yeah,
I mean, even thinking about how like the bedrooms and everything is laid out in the flat, Keegan is he's right up at the top floor on his own, isn't he? Where everyone else is all on that floor together, which I suppose is sort of symbolising how that family structure is.
He's kind of pushed out the way, left under the rug.
But but with Mitch, he sort of found someone that he hopes that he can look up to, and he sort of tried to sort of mimic him this week, hasn't he? Because Mitch arranged for the head teacher to come see him in person in the flat, and he used all his charm to seduce her to only give him 1 day's expulsion, yeah. So, and then obviously later in the week, Keegan tries to mimic Mick's charm on Kathy to get a free sandwich in the cafe. So he's obviously sort of looking up to Mitch as this sort of ideal man.
Well, his father figure, who he's never had. He's never. It's always been voided in his life. Some fatherly figure that he's craved and wanted. Again, going back to his always wanting approval, which he's never had, and he's getting it. He's getting it ultimately from what he wants a father to be.
I mean, he moves very quickly with being broken up with Karen to living in the house again, doesn't he? It's very quick. He sort of jumps right back into that role.
Well, funnily enough, this for the first time when Mitch was trying to convince Karen by using Keegan. This time around, Keegan wanted to convince Karen by using Mitch. So it was done it was again showing a power kind of shift slightly, where Mitch has striked out once, and so he knows that he needs to take it a bit more easily, a bit more slowly to get Karen's approval. But you're quite right, it doesn't. But again, poor old Karen, she's a bit weak in that regard. So I think she just wants to be loved. Maybe that's where Keegan's approval comes from Karen, from his mum, because Karen, all she wants is to be acknowledged and loved by this man that she ultimately
I guess
loved.
Mitch is that one person in her life that she just has that thing where she can't say no.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, he's the one, I suppose. We don't know other than one other relationship, which was Keanu's dad, which we know was turbulent. What other relationship she had, but you can imagine that she probably had quite difficult relationships in the past.
I'm sure we'll find them out all in the future. So, sort of Mitch and Karen rekindled each other after he found out he helped Keegan and his teacher. So obviously he moved back in, and then we had Mitch teaching Keegan how to iron in the morning, and
he was trying to show his mum that show Karen that he has changed and he's a different person, because later when all the kids have left the flat, it's him and Karen and they're dancing, and he's basically trying to confess to her that yes, I am this bad person. This is the person I've never wanted to be. I run away when things get too difficult, but I'm now ultimately trying to change. I want to be different. And she's saying, "Oh, you're saying the same old words. It's the same old words you say again and again and again." And he's insistent. No, this is not me trying to fool you again. I'm being honest. This is how I feel. Which I get the impression that actually he was honest, because before then you saw that he had stopped. Well, he told someone to stop messaging him on his phone, and then took off his it was his wedding ring. And I think he did. He wanted to start again with Karen.
Yeah, I think that, especially because you sort of get introduced to a new lady who comes to visit Karen in the laundrette.
Yes, so after he's given her this silk nightie, where you see this really vulnerable moment with Karen.
She's never had anything that nice before.
Exactly, and she's beginning to let her defences down again, and she's obviously doing her day's work at the laundrette, and this lady walks in, and they have this big argument because she reveals that Keegan, this other lady, Keegan is hers. And we learn that the lady's name is Marla, and so Marla's saying to Karen that she's pregnant. And
6 weeks.
6 weeks, yes.
So I'm not showing.
Just yes.
I mean, did you get creepy vibes from her straight away, or did you think she was genuine? What was when you obviously not thinking about what you know now, but what were you thinking when you first saw this scene?
When she was first introduced, I thought she was actually very honest. However, she had tones of
crazy.
Yeah, she reminded me of, you remember Phil dated that woman who burnt Ben with teaspoons. And
she has that similar sort of tone of voice, doesn't she? Or the way she speaks,
very high pitched, very quite articulate, childlike. Yes. And so that immediately I thought, they've cast that very similar. I wonder if there's maybe more to it. But at first, because for EastEnders, that's quite a layer upon layer upon layer kind of storyline. Because first of all, you think, so we knew that Mitch had been lying and that he was in a relationip, married or engaged with someone.
So you assume that Mitch was lying still.
So you assumed that Mitch was just back to his old tricks, and he just spent the money on buying that silk nightie, and spent the money on the rest of the money on himself to then try to fool her and keep it in the bank. So you don't really suspect EastEnders particularly to be that deep that they may then do another layer on top of that. But they do. So it's unfair of me to say they would never do anything like that. And so when eventually Karen said, I couldn't live with myself if I let you stay with me, and you wouldn't be with Marla, your pregnant fiance.
Yeah, because they sort of end up bonding, don't they? Her and Karen and Marla in the laundrette, and they sort of team up together. Because
Karen knows what it's like to be on her own with children, but also to be on her own with children and to have to look after the children on her own. And she knows that it's a tough road ahead, and she wouldn't imagine anyone else
she's very
doing it.
clever, this Marla lady, because she got all the information she needed to about Karen in that conversation, and she knows exactly how sort of broken Karen is and
Yes.
how easily manipulated she's going to be.
Yes.
Because she brought her back to the flat, didn't she, to surprise Mitch?
Well, she surprised Mitch.
They had known each other.
Yes. And she, basically Marla left, and Karen and Mitch, as I said, Karen basically said, I can't live with myself. And Mitch was begging her to let him stay. And Karen was like, no, I can't. And she knew that not only would that upset, because she's let her guard down twice now with Mitch and been made a fool of.
In quick concessions.
In quite quick concession. But she also knew, we later discovered, that she's basically made more of a strain in her relationship with Keegan, because Keegan has blamed her for ruining his chance with having some kind of relationship with Mitch, because Mitch is now texting him saying, you might as well forget about me, there's no point, I'm too bad, I'm bad, you shouldn't spend any more time with me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that was a really good scene when Keegan
goes into the laundrette.
Yeah.
Wonderfully, yeah. Keegan was, and I loved that Keegan stopped himself, because Keanu was like, hey, calm down, Keegan. Why are you saying this to Mum? Don't be so. Oh, if you knew, and then he just stopped himself.
Because he nearly told. Well,
he
almost what he knows about Keegan's dad.
Keanu's dad.
Keanu's dad.
Yeah, he almost revealed to Keanu what he knew. Keanu didn't pick up on it though, so that was a bit of a slow thing for Keanu though.
He's saving that for the next.
Yeah,
few months,
but I would have thought Keanu would have twigged quickly that something.
I mean, Keanu was busy feeling sorry for himself for other reasons, wasn't he? So maybe he was.
Well, he was, which again we'll talk about a little bit later on. But yeah, so Keegan. But again, it showed some maturity by Keegan that he stopped himself from saying that. Keegan 6 months ago
would have thrown a rock at Denise's head.
Oh, yeah, and dug up her flowers.
Yeah,
and he would have told Keanu that information. But he's maturing, and he stopped himself. And you could tell Karen, and so you could see that he still loved Karen, his mum, because he knew better than to hurt her further. So he could see that she was hurt, that she had to lie to him. But so yeah, that's an interesting dynamic, and I'd be interesting to see. That's something that's I reckon going to be Keanu's father. I reckon that's going to be pushed under the rug for a couple of weeks.
Because sort of when this was all happening, Keanu had his own little storyline of him and. Because Ingrid is back.
Ingrid, a shock return by Ingrid.
Know.
Jack let her have a few days off.
We thought she was silently axed, but she is still
No, she's
there.
still there bubbling in the background.
One thing I did notice in the beginning when Keanu and Ingrid were doing something under the covers on the sofa in the morning is that Bernadette was sat next to them eating breakfast. I mean, we know Keanu and Bernadette have a close relationship, but
Big Mo charges £30 for that.
Yeah, so that I thought that was a bit odd, but maybe it's a Norwegian thing. Who knows?
Yes, maybe. I suppose they've got nowhere else to do it. This is the story, wasn't it? The fact that Keanu
can't perform at his best.
He can't perform at his best. He has no
unquote by Keanu Taylor.
He has no privacy, and he wants to show Ingrid a good time. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and obviously if he's at Ingrid's, he's got Jack lurching over him.
Oh yes.
If he's in the flat, then well, we all know who's around.
Well, we know Jack's a desperate man as well. Again, keep listening.
Yeah. So we sort of had this storyline of maybe Keanu wanting to possibly move out and move into the young character residence with Jay and Donna.
I like that, the young character residence.
Well, they're all dead now. And Billy...
Dead?
Oh, Abby's dead. Oh yeah, Ben's not dead, is he? He's axed. But Abby's dead.
But he's not axed. He's just gone to mainland Europe to spend his...
£10,000.
Yeah.
If only Big Mo was around when the heist was
on.
Oh
yeah,
she could have taken a fit.
She could have done a nice little...
So obviously Jay was showing him around the flat and wanting Keanu to move in for £450 a month.
Well, that seems pretty decent to me. I don't know what the rates are in London, but...
very high, especially where they are.
Well, the East End of
maybe
London.
Walford's a bit...
up and coming.
Dead area.
With Jack's making it up and coming though, isn't he, with his new flats?
Yes.
So Jay is convincing, or did convince
Keanu to move out.
Yeah.
And obviously then there was that scene we just talked about in the laundrette where he sees Karen's upset, and one of the first things she says to her is, she says to him is, sorry, don't say you're moving out, are you? And it's...
Yeah, because he had a bag of clothes, so he was about to tell her, and then Keegan kind of put a spanner in the works. So, and then Ingrid and Jay are at the pub, and
Apparently they're friends.
they're BFFs. And she is excited and can't wait. And Keanu basically says, I can't leave my mum in this situation at the moment. Something to note is that all Keegan seems to eat is chicken nuggets and chips, and yet has the body of a Greek god.
Well, yeah.
Now, I don't know, is this some kind of trick that I'm missing out on here? Because I'd happily take that diet if it ended up with that miraculous transformation.
Well, all Kush does is drink beer, and he's got the body of a Strictly Come Dancing dancer.
That's true. That's true. So,
But I think that's anything else for the Taylors. They weren't really in Friday's episode, were they?
no, the Taylors were kind of
No.
left out really, other than Ted. But again, we'll be discussing that a
that's
bit later
separate.
on. However,
Yes.
it's my favourite part of the show. I'm not going to lie, Ben.
Oh, is it?
This is what I live for. It's time to see what people are up to in I'm Doing This Now.
Who is it this week?
Just do this now.
So, any guesses, or should I just go ahead and spoil the surprise?
Jump in.
I'll
Go
just
on.
jump in. So, for this edition of I'm Doing This Now, we will be discussing Heather Trott, performed by Cheryl Fergison from 2007 to 2012, and then again in 2016, but voice only.
Curious.
Curiouser and curiouser. So Heather was introduced to the soap as the best friend of Shirley, and they shared a flat together as well as a love for George Michael. Now Heather became friendly with Minty's fiancée Hazel Hobbs. Do you remember her?
Yes.
She's quite famous. She did Whose Line Is It Anyway? And a lot of improvisation show. And she convinced them to enter a competition for a magazine, a wedding magazine. Now, Hazel left Minty and Heather stepped in to share the money and they got married. However, this was later annulled as they did not consummate the marriage, but Heather remained in love with him. And that was pretty much the case for the whole time she was on the soap, really. And Minty was together with Sam and...
I always found Minty to be such like a nothing character.
Well, he started off as Phil's heavy.
Yeah.
He was Phil's right-hand man,
And
wasn't
then
he?
I think they ended up pairing him up with Gary Slater, didn't they?
Well, they
With
became
Lynn.
like the lads, didn't they?
Yeah.
They were a bit like Ben and Jay, I guess, if you wanted to compare them to modern day. They were the lads of the square.
I never liked characters like Minty. Like, he reminds me a bit of Robbie, like a bit of a nothing side.
I didn't mind Minty, actually. I preferred him over Gary. I thought Gary was a bit
They just
wet.
outstayed their welcome, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They were there for too long.
But anyway, this
Now,
is about Heather.
Well, yes, let's talk about Heather here. Now, on a night out where Heather discovered Shirley had paid for an escort to pay her attention at R&R's. Remember R&R's?
Yeah, I do.
What's that now? I forget.
Phoenix.
Heather became pregnant with the mystery man, who we later found out was Darren Miller.
Yeah, that was a whodunit, wasn't it?
Well,
One
yeah,
of the
who
strangest
did her? That's what
whodunits in Walford history.
But it kind of logistically seemed a bit strange, I think, in a lot of people's minds.
Because I think Ben was one of the options, wasn't he?
It was all the young ones. It was Minty, Ben, Gary.
Minty was a young one.
You know what I mean? Well, okay, all the lads, wasn't it? I think Phil was there as well. Phil was on the list.
God.
Yeah, they were all there.
And the George Michael lookalike was one of them as well, I think.
Well, he was at the club on the night,
Yeah.
wasn't he? Yeah. So throughout Heather's time on the square, she has struggled financially, resorting to stealing money from Dot and her boiler becoming faulty.
My goodness.
It's a big deal.
And people thought the bin storyline was basic.
Exactly.
They've always been there.
It was a slow time in 2012. Her boiler started to expel carbon monoxide, which poisoned Heather, and she was sent to hospital. Why are you laughing at Heather's?
It's just funny. Because it's Heather.
Now, while she was in hospital, Darren visited her flat and realised it was difficult for her to care for their child, and they agreed that he would be the main carer with his then girlfriend. Now, she also ventured into internet dating, ahead of her time, you see, Heather.
Like real life.
Absolutely. Life imitating art. Internet dating, thinking she had found love with the username Kevin68. But after a family member had reached out to Heather online that he had died from a road accident, Ben Mitchell confessed it was him all the time. What a horrible person Ben
Yeah.
Mitchell is, eh? You forget these things. Now, whilst on holiday in Southend-on-Sea, holiday hotspot of the UK, Heather falls for Dot's nephew, Andrew, played by Ricky Grover. And although he confesses he has a quick temper after an argument with Shirley and has a strained relationship with his mum, Heather agrees to marry and elope with him. Whilst at the flat to collect the tickets to elope, and after failing to reconcile her friendship with Shirley, Ben visits her and accuses Heather of hearing a conversation between him and Ian resulting in Phil going to jail. So this is when it got a little bit dark.
Yes.
Now, Ben didn't believe Heather when she insists she had said nothing, picked up a photo frame in a struggle and hit her around the back of the head with it, which ultimately caused her death.
So unfair.
It was a really...
unnecessary.
And again, an unglorified death, wasn't it? It was such a... It was a bit like when... Was it Helen got pushed down the stairs by Ian? Was it Helen? One of his wives, when he lived in the flat.
Laura. She didn't get pushed down the stairs. She tripped on like a soft toy.
Yeah.
And fell down the stairs. Yeah.
I always think that falling is such a...
like a...
Barry fell and his death was
but that
a bit...
was amazing.
Well, because of...
Janine,
exactly.
But yeah, Heather dying is just seems unnecessary.
It was unnecessary. And the actress...
I feel sorry for the actress.
She was a bit sad about that. She loved EastEnders. She was obsessed with EastEnders. It was like her dream to be in the job that she loved so much. In 2016, she did reprise her role on an audio recording that Dot found at the laundrette. On her last day of working there, they're talking about George Michael was playing his songs as a Christmas mixtape. So there you go. So that's Heather. We loved Heather.
Yeah,
she was just fun,
and her and Shirley were a great double act.
Yes, they were. They were a lot. They were like the Gary and the Minty, the female Gary and Minty.
Yeah,
if you like.
So what's she been up to since leaving EastEnders?
Well, she's actually done a lot. Soon after leaving the soap, Cheryl became a panellist on ITV's Loose Women. Seems to be the place to go.
I remember from that because that's when she announced that she'd met her husband-to-be.
On the internet.
Yes.
Life imitating art.
You see.
She also became a contestant on the 10th iteration of Celebrity Big Brother.
Did she?
Yep, she was the second one out.
Oh, what?
Yeah, she wasn't in there for very long.
How rubbish.
And she was on the Celebrity Singing Contest, and this isn't nothing to be proud of. Your Face Sounds Familiar. Do you remember that?
No.
It was like stars in your eyes, celebrity stars in your eyes.
Oh, right, okay.
But each week they did a different singer. Now, this isn't the official game, but do you want a quick game of Martin Fowler's 5 a day?
Oh, okay.
So
mix it up.
Let's mix things up a little bit.
Gosh.
So Cheryl became many different characters on Your Face Sounds Familiar.
Right.
In 30 seconds, can you name...
No.
just have to name...
What people
lots
that
of singers.
she did?
Yeah. Can you name all the people that she played, okay? But not all of them, because there's 6. So you need to name... There's 8, actually. There's 8. Okay, so you ready?
I can't even think of any.
Just name singers.
Okay.
You'll be fine.
Do they have to be larger singers or not?
How rude.
Like larger framed.
Larger than life? They could be larger than life singers, not necessarily larger framed.
Are they all female?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Guess and find out.
Okay.
So, are you ready? In 3, 2, 1, go.
Dolly Parton.
No.
Cher.
Yes.
I'm so shocked I got one right. I don't know what to do. Britney Spears.
No.
Christina Aguilera.
No. Don't think quite so modern. Well, actually...
Total Eclipse of the Heart woman. Bonnie
Tyler, no. Think of who's like a big singer at the moment, or was a couple of years ago.
Adele.
Correct. Time up.
Sorry.
Why are you apologising?
I don't know. Because it's difficult.
I'm sorry. You got Sharon and Adele.
I'm quite impressed I got 2.
2 is a good number. It's not half, but it's fine. So you could have had Dusty Springfield, Anastasia. Meatloaf.
Oh, so some of them were men.
I didn't say they weren't. I said guess.
No. For sake.
Lulu, Madonna, Cher and Adele.
Oh, okay.
So they were guessable. You just panicked. Now, away from reality programmes, Cheryl also landed some roles in comedy. She was in the 2013 TV series on Sky called The Spa, where she played Brigitte Wild, a spa guest who discovers she is the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler.
What a layered role that was.
Absolutely. In 2014, Fergison played Jo in the second series of David Walliams' BBC comedy Big School. Cheryl also took on a role in the 2016 comedy thriller White Island, a film based on Ibiza club culture. Now, at the moment, Cheryl is touring the UK theatres with Menopause, the musical. a celebration of women and the change. The musical comedy production about 4 women who work in a department store and share their hot flushes, night sweats and memory losses.
Beautiful.
Sounds good, doesn't it? Now, the tour has already begun, but it continues until the end of May. And it includes dates in Stevenage, Southend-on-Sea, so back to where she got proposed for her wedding, Oxford, York, Birmingham, Bristol, Cardiff, Cornwall, Poole, Reading, Milton-on-Keynes, Leicester, Newcastle, Stoke-on-Trent, Ipswich and Crewe. Now, as always, if you wish to follow Cheryl on Twitter or learn more about Menopause, the musical,
We all do.
and, of course, and how to buy tickets, look at our programme notes for the relevant links. And that was, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Doing This Now.
Just do this now.
Well, there you go. That's what Cheryl's been up to since leaving. So, going on to everyone else on the square, there's been a bit of sexual tension arising. Some strange lines this week about chips and steak with Sharon and Phil.
And renting cars.
Yes. Really creepy, cringy scenes.
I mean,
with Jack.
Yeah, if we can quickly start with Jack and Mel, little bonquette. It was an odd. It was almost a recasting of Jack this week. It was really strange, and they did it in one episode where he was driving around the square, cackling to himself.
I know, really creepy.
With his Mercedes.
Rented car, wasn't it?
His rented Mercedes, all to impress Mel, so they could go away to France together on the Eurostar.
I know. Where did he think this up anyway? Like last time we saw Jack, he wasn't. Where did this come from?
I think he dug it up from like a 1950s Ideals How to Win a Woman kind of video from the...
Obviously, Ingrid leaving him on his own for 12 hours. It's been not good.
This is why Ingrid's not been seen, because she's been mopping his brow with all these crazy ideas to get Mel.
So obviously he's spending Ronnie's inheritance money and renting a car to try and impress his new love of his life, Mel.
Which it kind of worked, but at the same time, I think Mel saw through it. I mean, like I say, it was...
Who wouldn't?
Well,
really?
yeah, it was
so
really
creepy.
odd. It was creepy. It was like something he'd almost gone Stone Age with his opinions on women. Like, she said, I wanted to drive the car. I was like, oh, if you can handle it.
Yeah, I know.
Little woman, get to your kitchen. It was just ridiculous. I don't know. They almost tore apart Jack in that one episode. All of his character traits, all of everything that was Jack, they tore him apart. And
I mean, he hasn't been that likeable in recent history anyway, but
he's never been an idiot.
No, or like
foolish, or
the only
Ian
word I
Beale.
can think of is creepy.
Or
It's
creepy,
just,
yeah. Because it was something like Ian Beale would do. It's something that he thinks, oh, this would impress them, and
maybe it was written for Ian, and he was off sick that week, so they swapped it with Jack.
But then that's a stupid thing to do. They should never have done that, because they, like you say, Jack's by no means a likeable character in my mind, but he's always been seen as quite a strong alpha male kind of strong character, or male character, like someone you. But he also got played by Hunter, by a 17-year-old
thank God
boy.
for Hunter.
I know.
I was cheering him on when he was looking up this car, because he's not impressed with Jack coming to his mum, is he?
Well, Jack's stupid extension of a certain appendage he used to with his car. And yes, Hunter...
Because we saw Hunter earlier having text from a person called Ray.
Yes, so this is obviously something that's bubbling now.
Which we found out is Mel's
ex-boyfriend.
So obviously Hunter had quite a bond with him, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and he wants him and his mum Mel to get back together again. But
so
that's all we really know.
He doesn't like the idea of Jack.
He doesn't like any competition for his mum Mel. But you also saw that Hunter had this kind of weird circuit board in his hand. Now that was strange. He did the typical kind of, I'll hide it behind this cushion whenever anyone's around, and then get it out in plain view for everyone to see.
What he's been up to.
So very interesting. But yes, so the Jack and Mel storyline, and then there was the Sharon and Phil storyline, where we learnt that Phil was still quite upset with Sharon. Not only
how dare he be upset with her for stealing thousands of pounds.
Ridiculous, if you ask me. That's just nothing. Drop in the
Sharon
ocean.
was upset with him because Michelle told her he saw him going into their house with another woman, with his arm round a woman.
Yes.
So she storms in
with her steak, her ribeye steak, her pudding, her 3-course meal that she was cooking for Phil, and obviously got the wrong end of the stick, because that's Phil's Alcoholic Anonymous sponsor.
Yeah, he's sponsoring her, so
Mm.
she wouldn't talk though. She was obviously not paid that.
She
£50
wasn't being
for
paid.
that episode.
No, she's an unpaid extra. I didn't look to see if she got credited.
No, I don't know.
I wonder what the name would have been. Sponsor.
Sponsor one.
And just her first
Other
name.
woman.
Yeah. Sharon's mistake. So again, but Sharon revealed that her and Phil haven't been having much of a sex life recently.
Mm-hmm. We all wanted to know that.
Well,
even Michelle was a bit disgusted by this.
Well, Michelle was also quite concerned, wasn't she?
Well, she was eating her bacon roll.
Yes. Don't. Well, we discovered that Sharon was quite a goer at the time. She had, as Sharon said in her husky voice, I had my moments, didn't I?
She did.
So obviously Phil seems to be pulling her back a little bit. But, again, she didn't really fight her case very well last week when she decided to get herself blind drunk and
throw up
everywhere.
Yeah.
That's not really forgivable.
I mean, I'm guessing they're heading for a Sharon and Phil divorce with this storyline.
Yeah, I'm getting the impression that Phil's got something in his mind for Mel. I feel like he wants to do something with Mel.
Everyone does.
She's undeniably beautiful. But, there's something going on with Phil at the moment. And obviously him and Sharon, it's going to be...
I think it would be better for both characters if they were separated.
Yeah, they're kind of slowing each other down, aren't they?
Yeah, they've both been in a bit of a rut since they got together again.
Other than the turbulent beginning when obviously the gunfire and the shooting and so on, it's kind of just gone a bit quiet since then. There's nothing really been going on. They've had their own individual storylines as well. Like there's never really been anything they've kind of gelled together as a storyline for. So it'd probably make more sense.
I'm all up for that.
Yeah, let's split them up.
Yeah, I mean, talking about splitting lovely couples up, we had the sad moments this week with Joyce and Ted.
I know, Joyce and Ted.
Just when she was getting funny with her bingo lines and ones that she's been at. Well, we're not sure what happened. It's all very sudden. It was only announced like last week. That
it was very quickly.
Already left and filmed her ending scenes.
I mean, I wish they kind of kept that a bit quiet because that would have been quite a nice little shock exit for her.
I guess they did try to keep it quiet.
But it was
people like us last week, you see, spoiling it.
We're spoiling the world. But they kind of just kind of dribbled her way out. I mean, if you were going to find a storyline other than the Slater storyline that basically dominated the week, you have to really argue that their storyline was the one. How sad for Joyce that her only storyline since being in the show is her dying. Death. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
But she did have that one scene where she was sort of yelling at Ted, and that one scene you sort of saw what a great actress she is or could have been.
Oh, I completely agree. Their story, this was the best storyline them two have ever had because they weren't going cafe to cafe reminiscing about old times. Ted, and you finally learnt a dynamic about them, which you've never seen. They've been there, over a year now or just under a year?
Coming up to a year.
You've never learnt the dynamic about them both, other than that Ted can be a bit difficult and has a bit of a short temper.
Used to be in the army.
But
you never learnt really anything about her. I think that's been the trouble with people enjoying her character. You've never really learnt anything about Joyce.
Well, you never learn anything about Joyce. You never learn about anything about their relationship other than she's kind of had to support him. And this week you learnt that really she was the
head of the house.
The head of the house. She was the crutch that kept Ted up and kept him going, and Ted kind of missed out on his family, and also he did everything for him and he never really thanked her for it.
No, he took it all for granted, didn't he?
Took it for granted. Yes, he took it all for granted from Joyce. And you've learnt, this is something that if they had just introduced this earlier, it would have been a really interesting dynamic for them both. So it's really frustrating that they actually did this. Because that could have been a really, again, and it would have tied in, and it did start to tie in with his depression and his moods. Like when Joyce was having a go at him for shouting at Bernie about the chess game, he suddenly winced and went into a shell, like kind of curled up into a ball. And so you learnt that this dynamic was always there, but they never did anything about it.
I thought it was really interesting because there's quite a few hints. Obviously, they've got a son and a daughter, and you've always known that they haven't gotten on that well. But there was lots of hints this week saying that obviously growing up in childhood, Ted was never really there as a father, and she was always there as a mum, and all the phone calls were directed to Joyce. Even when the son texted Ted's phone, the text was to the mum. So that sort of shows you why Ted has this sort of
disattachment.
Yeah, and also why he's getting so attached to Bernadette,
He's
which sort of makes this whole chess storyline
a bit more interesting and a bit more makes sense.
Better dynamic.
So yes, in that sense, and I don't know if this was the writer's goal with the chess storyline, but it's actually kind of given a bit more flesh to that storyline now with him and Bernadette. But you're absolutely right, and I totally agree with you. He obviously lost out with his sons and his grandchildren who now live in Australia. They've tried to find the most furthest part of the world they can get away from him, but I don't think Joyce was ever the problem. It was always Ted.
Yeah,
and
he was so shut off, wasn't he?
And she always tried so hard. Well, I say she always tried so hard. You get the impression, because you only got this glimpse this week of it, that she wanted Ted to have a better relationship with their children, but Ted still kind of found a way to escape it and worm his way out of having to have this emotional attachment with them. It was a huge shame. It really was.
It was. I mean, it's such a it's really quite a sad storyline, actually. The fact that the way that she died, he went off to go to the chess game with Bernadette, so she said, "Oh, you go, I'll just have an early night," and then that was it. She obviously died in her sleep. But you find this a lot with couples that have been, because they said they've been together for 60 years. You find this a lot, don't you, with when the wife dies suddenly like this, and it sort of leaves the man who he didn't realise just quite how she was doing everything for him.
How reliant
she was paying
he was.
for everything. She was booking everything.
Well, that's what you saw, didn't you? And again, it was actually done really nicely. Joyce left clues around the square.
Yeah.
And so the diary and all kinds of bits and pieces of like her last day, and she wanted Ted to fulfill it for her. And so he got the fish from the fishmongers, paid for already by Joyce, got the laundry,
Got
paid
the
for
knitting
already.
magazine.
Knitting.
Already paid for.
Already paid for, already done. And so she was always the one, and Ted obviously didn't realise, because she was just doing it quietly underneath him, exactly how much she was doing. And so of such an awful storyline, something really good I think is going to become of it, because I think there's going to be a great Ted storyline now where he's going to become, I think there's going to be a big depression storyline, human depression? Male depression storyline, which is fascinating and brilliant, and it's about time that they did something like that.
And also it'll be interesting to see how his relationship with Bernadette sort of comes, because the lady hosting the chess thing thought he was her granddad.
Yes.
Which I thought a little, I think that lady saying that to him, I think he felt quite attached to her. So,
but I think this is almost links to Bernie's miscarriage storyline, because I think Bernie has always tried to find someone to attach herself to and want to look after, and perhaps this could be something where she sees Ted as someone she could look after now. So yeah,
I think as long as it's written well, I think it's going to be a really good storyline.
I agree. I'm really excited about seeing what happens with this. Finally, something exciting's happening with Ted and Bernie. So yeah, be good to see.
Farewell, Joyce.
Yes.
Goodbye. After that sad storyline, let's lighten things up with a quick little game. We've got another new game this week, which is Slater Family Values. Right, so we've got Slater Family Values.
I feel so strange playing the game.
Well, roles have reversed now, I'm afraid.
You've got the power.
So I've come up with this game, which is basically 6 degrees of separation. But because Walford's such a enclosed family unit, I've changed it to 5 degrees. So
you're being very kind.
I know. So 5 or less steps to join one character to another.
Right.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay.
And you have 30 seconds.
Oh.
So this week's, because it's Slater Family Values, I've started with a Slater. So please link Stacey Slater to Pam Coker.
When does the time start?
And the time starts now.
Okay. Stacey Slater was married to Bradley.
Right.
Bradley is the cousin or the nephew of Jack Branning.
10 seconds.
Jack Branning is wooing Mel. Right. Mel was once married to Phil Mitchell. Phil
You're
Mitchell.
on your last one.
Oh
now.
no!
Time's up.
Oh.
Well, where was that going?
Well, then I was going to say Phil Mitchell is the father of Ben Mitchell, who was together with Paul, who was then.
Right. Well, I'm
That
going to do a
was
Rachel.
tough.
No, I'm going to do a Rachel Riley from Countdown and show you the quickest way to do this.
Go on then.
So one way you could have done it was
One way.
Stacey was married to Martin, who has a stall on the market.
I was going to say Martin, but it seemed too obvious.
Martin has a stall on the market. Pam has a flower stall. 2 steps. Or
That was. Well, I thought you had to do it in 5 steps.
5 or less.
Oh, but then I could have just said, Stacey Slater lives on Albert Square,
No,
and so
that
did Paul.
doesn't count. That's ridiculous. They have to be linked. Oh, there you go. You didn't. No points.
Well, I think the rule should be changed. There has to be 5 steps in the future.
Okay. Stacey is married to Martin.
Oh God.
1.
Go on then.
Martin works on the flower stall, on the market stall.
Yep.
The flower stall, which is owned by Pam, supplies flowers to Coca and Sons,
Even you're struggling.
who employs Les, who is married to Pam. That's 5 steps.
Oh, whatever. I think you're cheating now.
Nope.
Well,
Well,
anyway.
better luck next time.
What a silly game. I bring back Ian Bill's Real Deal, if you ask me.
Yeah, well, we'll be doing it in circular, so it'll be Ian Bill's Real Deal
But there
next
might be
week.
another new game.
Okay.
Wait and see.
We will see. So, to end this week's podcast, we've got a few fan questions.
Oh, yes, thank you.
So, people have been tweeting in, commenting on our YouTube videos, and emailing us.
And Facebooking as well.
Yeah, there's been all sorts of things. So, I've just picked out a few so we can hopefully spread them out over each episode. So, the first one we have from our YouTube channel from Ewan Vickers 1.
Hello, Ewan Vickers 1.
His question is, do you guys think it was a mistake killing Stephen Bill off, as he was a very interesting character?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Stephen Bill, they could have done
I feel very
so
strongly
much more.
about all of this that's been happening.
Mm.
They're too quick to kill off the younger characters, especially legacy characters like Stephen Bill and Abby Branning and Lucy Bill and stuff. I think they're doing it for sort of shock value, but they're not thinking ahead for when in sort of 7 or 10 years' time all these legacy family characters aren't here anymore.
Yeah, it can come back around again. I mean, I'm always up for change in soaps, so new families being introduced, new characters, absolutely. But with soaps, more than any other television medium, you need to keep a background story. So having these family characters do need to be kept in, and you're quite right. They were doing it for shock value, but you do it too often, and the shock value gets destroyed anyway. So it kind of loses.
And also,
that value.
Stephen's death didn't really evaluate to any comeuppance or anything really, did it?
Max hasn't had any comeuppance for
for killing him.
No,
and everyone on the square knows as well.
Everyone knows
No one
about it,
cares.
and they don't seem to be doing anything about
Yet
it.
they're really upset with Big Mo faking her death.
Yeah, and also that's the reason why Jane left the square. So I don't know. Maybe maybe that's something they're planning.
Well, that
for the
doesn't
future.
really make sense. The fact that Jane's not come back now.
Well, it does make sense that Ian's ignoring her phone calls as well. That was really bizarre that they did that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I apparently Laurie Brett, who plays Jane, had quite a bad back accident last year, which is why she left.
Was she in the wheelchair though?
I think that was sort of written. Well, she was recovering, wasn't she? But in real life, she went abroad to get rehabilitation.
Oh right, so
that's
imitating
kind of
art.
why.
That's seems to be a theme this week.
So our second question's from Twitter, and this is from Carry On Carrie.
Hello, Carry On Carrie.
Hello. So they say, what's up with the laundrette? We caught a glimpse of the posh new exterior a year ago on June Brown's birthday special episode. We all remember that Doof Doof, which was the weirdest Doof. It was like the start of the strange Doof Doofs from Sean O'Connor when it's...
Remind me.
It was when Dot just closed the laundrette and then it like panned upwards and then it ended.
Oh yeah,
and everyone was like, it wasn't like the proper.
They were
Doof
using
Doof,
the
it was
drone,
weird.
weren't they? That's when they had the drone for the week.
So that was the exterior from a year ago on June Brown's birthday, but it's yet to materialise on the show. I think it was meant to be an upmarket dry cleaners. So where has it gone?
Well, like a lot of things that happened with that producer, it was kind of washed aside and forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Sean O'Connor had to close a lot of sets on EastEnders because he introduced the Wilmot Brown office sets, and they were taking up a lot of the space.
Oh, right.
So that's why they had to close some of the sets and they weren't used anymore.
I mean,
so obviously that laundrette was one that he couldn't use because he put Josh's office and Lauren's office in its place.
I mean, you saw the laundrette before the upgrade when Michelle was talking to that photographer and the cat.
Yeah, with Pauline Fowler.
Pauline Fowler, yeah. And they've brought back the laundrette, which seems a bit strange if you ask me. Although I like that Karen works there, and it
but
suits
there's
her
no
to the
reason
ground.
it couldn't have been a dry cleaner.
Well, it could have been dry cleaners,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
But,
because
I mean, that was the sort of official reason, is because the set space was being used up by another set.
oh, right. So they kept it closed for that period of time for that reason.
So obviously with that set now demolished, that's why they've now got the R&R back and the laundrette.
Oh, that's
and
good.
Stuff like that, and like the chip shop, stuff like that.
I mean, you need to keep it on the square, really. Again, but are they upgrading the sets soon?
Well, it's been soon for quite a few years, hasn't it? I'm
Yeah.
not sure what's happening with that.
I mean, every other soap. I know Coronation Street have moved to a much bigger set again because they moved 10, 15 years ago, and they've moved again since to Media City.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll wait and see.
Who knows? So we've got one more question which was emailed in to us. So this was from Sam. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl.
Hi, Sam.
Unknown, hello. They want to know. EastEnders has no gay male characters left and has turned Tina Carter from lesbian to bi. EastEnders really is behind the times on this issue, especially as Corrie, Emmerdale, Hollyoaks and Neighbours all have gay male characters. Why are EastEnders so bad at representing LGBT characters, and do you think we will see a better representation of them anytime soon?
Well, first of all, defend EastEnders quickly. It took Neighbours 40 years to put a gay character in their soap. So to say that's kicking
Okay, but
and
what about all the
screaming-
other soaps?
Well, yes,
in England?
Coronation Street, Hollyoaks has a plethora of gay characters.
That's where they all are.
That's where they all
They've
live.
all moved from Walford to
They
live
should
in
just change the logo to a rainbow
Hollyoaks.
flag and just have done with it. They should have their own pride in Hollyoaks, for crying out loud. You're quite right. Yes, if you're going to show a spectrum of the community, LGBT community, it'd be lovely.
and it is lacking, isn't it?
It's very lacking.
Very all of a sudden.
It does make me angry, and it really winds me up that they take characters that are gay, because you say Tina, also Sonia, and they take characters that are gay, and they almost
just forget.
They forget. They just kind of make it out that it's something you can just choose
Pick
to
and
be,
choose.
pick and choose, and just do it. I mean, I suppose we do live in a very fluid community nowadays, so you have every right to sleep and fall in love with whoever you want to fall in love with, but I wish they would introduce some gay characters, and
I mean, Tina's always been technically bi because she has had a daughter before she was even introduced to the show.
yes,
So.
and so Sonia, to be
Yeah.
fair. I mean,
obviously they got rid of Ben, got rid of Johnny, got rid of Paul.
Paul and Ben were
All in a
excellent.
row.
I really loved Paul and Ben, and I again it was such a
that was
shame.
another unfair death.
Yeah, and it was such a sad death as well, Johnny, and then
And Les, got rid of Les.
Les,
I
which-
suppose he wasn't trans, but
he wasn't
still,
trans. He was a cross dresser, wasn't he? Sonia's not Sonia, Stacey's brother. He was transgender.
Yeah, and he got
He was a really interesting character as well.
they just
I
got rid
liked
of him suddenly, didn't they?
They just axed him one day and decided not to keep. He's gone off to a chef's course now,
He
has he?
has. Maybe they could ask him for the £5,000 that he needed.
I mean, I loved the storyline when Saeed was struggling with his sexuality
With Christian.
That was a fantastic storyline, and I'll never forget the scene when Christian and Saeed's mother, and the name's escaping me now, but she was a great actress.
I can't remember her name. I was going to say Shabnam, but that's
That's
the
the daughter. She was a wonderful actress. And they just before Saeed's marriage, Christian was begging her to just stop the sham, stop Saeed lying. That scene, I'll never forget that scene, because she inside she knew that he was right, and she couldn't admit it. And it also made it really interesting because it was the Muslim community as well, so it kind of meshed a lot of stories and problems all in one. Yes,
They
please
should bring them back. Christian and Saeed, they're still together.
I'd love Christian and Saeed to come back, actually. I really would. But then they'd probably tear them apart and destroy them. So I kind of like the fact that they've kind of gone away to some mysterious place and be happy. Yeah. So yes.
Always nice. So thanks for your questions.
Yes, thank you ever so much for those.
Please send in some more for us next week, because you never know, you might be picked out to be discussed.
Absolutely. And, let us know your thoughts about what we discussed tonight was as well. Oh, as we're talking about things on Twitter, quick look at what happened with this week's question.
Poll of the week.
The poll of the week. So obviously look out, if you're listening to this podcast, head off to Twitter right now at Eastenders Week, and there'll be a brand new question poll of the week. Now, this
week's episodes.
This week we asked, how many times was Kat's name mentioned until her on-screen return during part 1 of Thursday's episode?
Right.
Now, the options were 80, 85, 90 and 95. And there was a correct answer.
They're all very high.
They're all very high. But there was a correct answer. Do you know, Ben? Do you want to have a quick punt or...
95, I'm guessing 95. The highest, I don't know.
Well, 25% of people said 95, as did they 85. 19% said 80, and the correct answer and the highest number of people said 31%, and that was 90 times. Cat was said 90 times, and that was over 3 episodes.
Only 90 times.
So that's 30 times an episode, or 1 cat per minute, if you're going to boil it down to that
well, there you go, the viewers got it right. So
yeah, so good on you. Good on you guys. So like I say, look out on our Twitter at Eastenders Week, on our Instagram at Eastenders Week. Tweet, message us, find us on Facebook, Eastenders Weekly. We can email us, eastendersweekly@gmail.com. We love your questions. We love your feedback, and
keep them coming. And you've also got another week to enter our competition. So I will retweet that as well, so you can all see how you can win an official signed autograph of Annette Badland, who played Babe Smith.
Absolutely. It's dead simple. All you have to do is follow and review us and send us a picture of that on a direct message on Twitter or an email.
Twitter or anywhere, and you'll be entered in to win.
Fantastic. It's a great prize. We're jealous.
Yes.
I wish we could enter.
Cool. So that wraps us up this week. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Well, I can't wait for Easter. Can't wait to get my Easter eggs from the Easter Bunny.
The Easter Bunny?
Yeah.
How old are you? The Easter Bunny doesn't exist.
Shut your mouth.
The theme to EastEnders Weekly was written and composed by Klaxon. He can be found on SoundCloud under KLAXUN. Thank you all for listening, and if you'd like to subscribe and leave a review, it would mean so much to us, as it really helps the word get out that we're around. If you have any topics or discussion you want us to talk about, you can email us at eastendersweekly@gmail.com or send us a tweet at EastendersWeek. We do live tweeting to every episode of EastEnders, so make sure you follow. See you soon.